The verse for our consideration this afternoon comes from Isaiah chapter 42, verse 13. The Lord will march out like a champion, like a warrior he will stir up his zeal. With a shout he will raise the battle cry and will triumph over his enemies. What makes a man a man? How does a boy become a man? Does it happen when he's 16? Does it happen when he's 18? Does it happen when he moves out of the house? Is it something more than that? I've heard some people say, a man provides for his family. That's the definition of a man. A man provides for his family. A man has a job. A man works. A man does things. A man puts food on the table. That's what a man does. And I've heard some people use that definition as justification for all sorts of different things that a man does. A man stole something. A man has to provide for his family. A man got in a fight. A man has to provide for his family. A man stepped on somebody else to get ahead. A man provides for his family. You're not going to judge a man who's trying to provide for his family, are you? That's not the only definition, but I've looked at a bunch of surveys, what people said about a man, and a lot of people said basically a man takes care of his family, a man is the provider, that sort of a thing. But there are other things that people say too. A man does what he wants. That really opens up to just about anything. If a man does what he wants, what does a man want to do today? Could be all sorts of things. Some people would say a man stands up for somebody else's reputation. A man fights if he has to. A man doesn't run away from conflict. A man goes right into it. A man is interested in sports. That's what the surveys say anyway. Like 70% of people think a man ought to be interested in sports, whether he is or not. A man is interested in cars. A man likes music or dislikes music. A man dances. A man doesn't dance. A man doesn't show emotion. A man is angry. There are a lot of expectations on a man. What makes a woman a woman? Is that easier to figure out in your head? Do you have a firmer definition of that, or maybe not quite so much? Maybe it's easier to define a man as opposed to a woman. A woman is supposed to be nurturing. A woman is supposed to be ladylike but tough. A woman is supposed to defend her family. A woman is supposed to clean and cook and do it with a smile on her face, and also work a second job too. That's what a woman is supposed to do. A woman is supposed to be in the house and out of the house. A woman is supposed to be many places at once. A woman needs 8 arms to take care of everything. A woman has to be tender, but also firm. A woman has to be pure and clean, and yet not at the same time. There's a lot of things that people say about what a man has to be and what a woman has to be, and people have surveys on what society expects, on what people expect. And one of the things that I keep seeing, besides that a woman ought to be beautiful and a man ought to be strong, is that a man provides for his family and a woman cares for her family. Those are the things that I see most often. Whether that's fair or not, I guess you can tell me after the service. And I'm sure you've got all sorts of thoughts. But you can imagine how people would have felt that would have read these words that Isaiah wrote to. The prophet Isaiah was writing to people who were in exile. He was writing to men. Men who were supposed to provide for their families, protect their families, defend. Men who were supposed to be fighters and warriors, but who saw their city get destroyed and captured. He's talking to men who lost in battle and got deported. He's talking to men who were not free, but now they were captives, and their families were too. And if a man defends his family, if a man provides, if a man protects, if a man fights if he has to, or if he just wants to, then maybe Isaiah wasn't really writing to men. Or at least he was writing to defeated men. But Isaiah was also writing to women. Women who cared about their families. Women who wanted to nurture their children and their husbands. Some women who worked outside of the house. Women who did all sorts of different things. But for all those women, whether they liked to decorate their homes or not, whether they cared for their possessions very much or not, their homes were ripped away from them. And their children were not able to be educated in the schools that they wanted to, but they were sent out of the city, and now they were all captives in Babylon. And for all those women who wanted to do nothing more than to care for their families, they weren't able to do that in the way that they wanted to. And if a woman cares for her family, then were these really women that Isaiah was writing to? At the very least, they were defeated women. And so Isaiah reminds them, you are not always in charge of the life of your family. You don't always get to go into battle for yourself. And whether you look at yourself as being strong or weak, at some point, you're going to fail. But the Lord doesn't. The Lord doesn't run away from conflict. The Lord isn't weak. The Lord doesn't take on battles that aren't worth taking on. Some of those characteristics that we attribute to men or to women are things that we shouldn't be attributing to anybody. They're negative characteristics, things that only tear others down. But when we see the Lord going into battle, he's not afraid. He's not weak. First of all, he marches out like a champion. Just when he walks onto the field, he walks out like somebody who's already won. And that's what they say for people who have been in competitions before, for people who have played in sports, for people that have performed on stage. Once you've been there, once you've been victorious, you know what it takes to get back there again. Once you've been successful, you know what you have to keep doing to be successful again. When the Lord walks out to fight, he walks out like somebody who's already been there. He walks out like somebody who has won. That's what Isaiah says is going to happen. To people who were in exile, to people who wanted to be set free, Isaiah says that's going to happen. And it's not going to be because you were strong all of a sudden, because you were victorious. It's going to be because the Lord did it for you. And I can imagine that when the people would have heard these words spoken to them for the very first time, they would have said, yes, I'm looking forward to that happening. When these words are read today to men who have it in their hearts that for whatever a man is supposed to be, at the very least, a man should provide for his family, protect his family. And a man does that as well as he's able. But eventually a man finds out he can't defend his family from everything. He can't outlive all of his children. He can't keep his children away from things that are going to harm them. And a man visits his children in the hospital. At least I like to think a man would visit his children in the hospital, and he sees, well, maybe he sees that they're sort of like he was when he was younger, but he couldn't protect them from falling off the ladder. He couldn't protect them from being in that car accident. He couldn't protect them from slamming their fingers in the door. He wasn't there. And a man sees his children turning away from God. A man sees his children falling into sin. And the question might be asked, if a man is there to defend his family, if a man protects his family, if a man guards his family, if a man is a fighter, then why isn't this man keeping his children away from things that are going to harm them? Why are his children running away from God and running towards sin and sinful behavior? Why are they listening to people who are leading them away? Are today's fathers really men if they can't protect their families, if they can't protect their children, if they can't protect themselves? What about women? I listed a whole bunch of things that women are supposed to be, things that women are supposed to do. Because anytime anyone generalizes, they get in trouble. And I can't speak to your experience or what your life has been. But I think every woman has in her heart and as part of her nature that she wants to provide, protect, comfort the people that she cares about. She wants to encourage them. She wants to uplift them. And she wants them to do the same for her. So what about women who feel isolated from their families? Women who don't feel that their families care for them. Women who aren't visited as they get older. Women who don't hear from their children when they don't call. What about women who are supposed to nurture their families, to encourage them, but have missed opportunity after opportunity to do that? And they see the same thing that the men see. They see their children going away, further away from God. They see them turning away and following all sorts of other things. And when their children come back home at night, past curfew, smelling of alcohol on their breath, and the mothers ask, "Where were you tonight?" And the kids lie to them. They go into their bedrooms and cry. Because they failed. They must have failed, right? That's what happened. I mean, if a mother is supposed to nurture and care for and her children are going away, then has she failed? Is she really a woman? If we're going to define ourselves by the things that we do, by our own accomplishments, by the way that we're able to influence people and get them to do what we want, we'll be nothing other than sinful failures. We can't keep other people from going into sin. We can't even keep ourselves from doing it. We can't be victorious over death. All of us are going to die. We can't be victorious over the devil. Not by ourselves. We need somebody else to do it. We can't fight strong enough to win. We need somebody who can. We need somebody who promised that he would do it for us. We need somebody who can go into battle and not lose enthusiasm like we do. We need somebody who won't be discouraged or dismayed. We want somebody who looks at us as sinful and as awful human beings as we are and still says, "I love these people and I want to fight for them, I want to defend them, I want to nurture them." Isaiah wrote these words to people who were downtrodden, people who were in need of encouragement. Isaiah wrote these words to people who are downtrodden and in need of encouragement. And people, for all their personal failures, still need somebody who can be victorious, somebody who can be a warrior for them when they are weak. The beauty of these words is that they don't tell you, be stronger than you have been, do better, go back in time and undo all of the mistakes that you made when you were taking care of your family or taking care of somebody else or taking care of yourself. But these words promise a warrior who goes into battle, a warrior who is victorious over sin and death and the devil, a warrior who gave up his own life so that you could live. The Lord will march out like a champion, like a warrior he will stir up his zeal. With a shout he will raise the battle cry and will triumph over his enemies. And when Jesus died on the cross, he did exactly that. He is the warrior when we are not. He is strong when we are weak. Amen.